Testing, testing, 1, 2, 3, 3, 2, 1, test, test, test. Okay, so just checking that the audio comes on, and I'll get started. Yeah, there we go. Right, let me have a quick look at, so today I'm going to continue with the Back to Basics theme for Saturdays, and we're going to stick with that until we get back. And yeah, so I think the last week what I did was just ran through some basic meditations starting from the beginning, and this session will be focused on that for the time being. This week what I'm going to do is cover noting or labeling practice, and so this is actually ancient. If you read, there's a thing called the Anapanasati Sutta, and what that does is that describes how Buddha taught the breathing meditation, the following the breath meditation, in 500-600 years BC, something like that. And I can't remember it exactly, but it goes something like this. So he was teaching the monks, so obviously he visited a monastery, and he was teaching the monks there. And it goes something like this. He says that the monks were breathing in, and as they're breathing in, they are saying, I am breathing in. And then the monks are breathing out, and as they're breathing out, they're saying, I am breathing out. And I get the impression from that that was actually the inner dialogue that was noting or labeling the rising and falling of the breath. So that's, I think, is the first, I could be wrong, but we wouldn't be more than 100 years or 200 years out, and the actual dates of all of this are really, they're unknown. I don't think that we would have another example of this process of noting or labeling at an earlier stage. I don't think that it was sort of perceived to be a thing for a while, but as time progressed in the Buddhist tradition, noting became an important element of the meditation training. And then in the 50s, 40s and 50s, a monk called Mahasi Sayadaw in Burma formalized noting and labeling practice into a fundamental training, which he called insight meditation. And there's two schools of insight meditation. So so if you've ever heard of Vipassana, they're like meditation boot camps where you go and you meditate for 10 days, and there's all sorts of practices, and some of them are quite rigorous. And it's split up into two camps. There's the Goenka style Vipassana meditation, named after the founder of that, and there's the Sayadaw, Mahasi Sayadaw Vipassana. However, the Mahasi Sayadaw's Vipassana doesn't seem to be taught in the UK at the moment. It was, but it doesn't seem to be at the moment, which is a real shame, because I personally believe, only from feedback that I get from my students, that it's an incredibly powerful set of practices. And so these practices are us noticing our experience, witnessing our experience, and acknowledging it. And that's what that does is this. I when I think I was teaching, I can't remember exactly which session I was teaching in the last week or so, and I was trying to explain the inner experience of meditation, which is actually this is the inner experience of life. Because if you do the sort of meditation that I teach, which is largely it's what we call mindfulness meditation now, but it originates in these two traditions, the Hindu tradition and the Buddhist tradition, largely. And if you look at the useful meditations in that area, then you'll find that they're all a process of exploring what it's like to be human, our day-to-day experience. And so you're not doing anything unusual. So you're not doing things like hyperventilating. Mantras and chanting do create a different state. They do, which is one of the reasons that I don't teach chanting and I don't teach mantra. I realise for some people it's useful, but I mean, well, I do teach mantra, but not as a key part of the practice. I do realise for some people, especially with people with incredibly busy minds, that it's very, very useful because it drowns out the inner dialogue. But I prefer to approach the experience of our awareness and awareness of our experience. And they're both valid things. Experience of our awareness and the awareness of our experience are both valid. As it is. And so what the experience of being human consists of is an awareness of what the Buddhists refer to as phenomena. And phenomena is it's a bit of recursive logic here. So you're defining something by what it is. And what you're doing is you're defining awareness by saying it's an awareness of the phenomena that arise. And then you say, well, what are the phenomena? And you say, well, they're the things that arise in the awareness. So I know that that's a little bit mind-blowing, but it's where you really have to start. And what you're actually saying is, we might not know anything else, but we know that there is this awareness. I think that was probably what Descartes was trying to get across when he came up with his famous phrase, cogito ergo sum, I think, therefore I am. I kind of thought, unfortunately, for many people, and awareness get mixed up. They're different. Because you can be aware without thought. So there are no thoughts. There's no mental activity. There isn't an inner dialogue, and you're not imagining some scenario, and you're not going through the past. Here you are, and you're just aware of your experience. So getting closer to that experience of being aware of the phenomena arising in your awareness, that's the most useful thing that we can do as a human being. And it provides an infinite number of benefits. And the world would be a completely different place if everybody did this. Because a lot of the layers of the word that's commonly used is ego. Belief, the big I am this sort of person, I am respected, I am liked, I am loved, I am hated, I am feared, whatever it might happen to be. And then the group I am that Jung was, Carl Gustav Jung, great psychologist, constructed this idea of the collective unconscious. And you can see the collective unconscious operating in things like politics. It's people with these beliefs and there's people with those beliefs, and they start acting as one. The more that happens, the dumber it gets. Okay, because what you're doing is you're delegating your beliefs and thought processes to some external entity, which is just really not helpful. It's far better to understand that there's all of these layers, and they're getting in the way of you really experiencing life to the full. And fulfillment, if there is a measure of this process, it's fulfillment. The Dalai Lama says that happiness is gaining fulfillment in a neutral experience. So having a neutral experience, so this is a neutral experience for me now. It used to be scary, but here I am now, quite comfortable talking into the camera. We're all in there somewhere. And so it's a neutral experience. Can it be fulfilling? And if you can't find fulfillment in neutral experiences, it's because of all of this stuff that's getting in the way. And the way to get through the stuff is, I mean, there's, depending on what it consists of, a lot of practices that you can apply. But ultimately, it comes down to what's absolutely real. What's absolutely real, what you can hear, see, smell, touch, taste. The past, it tends to get reconstructed in people's minds, as you'll discover if you ever have a contentious, well, I'm sure everybody does, as a contentious interaction with someone, and you come back to it, and it's like they're talking from another planet. No, I didn't say that. Yes, you did say, and all this kind of stuff. So, and what it is neither of you actually remember. If you don't write things down, there's no point. And of course, when the contentiousness arises, that's the last thing. So hang on a second, stop arguing. I'll get my notebook out. Doesn't work. So it's best to write things down afterwards, as soon as you can afterwards. So the past, don't get hung up over the past, and definitely don't get hung up over the future. Let's say I said to you a year ago, what's your biggest problem in 2020? You'd have told me, and it wasn't, was it? Right. So yeah. So the future arises as a set of phenomena for us, and when it does, it will be arising in our present moment. And so our awareness and our awareness of our awareness and the experience of this is the way to make the most of life and gain fulfillment from a neutral present moment. Now, a good way to do this is by noting what arises. Thoughts, smells, tastes, sounds, emotion, whatever it might happen. It can be memory. You might want to split thought into memory. You might want to, I tend to like to keep these things quite high level for the basic noting practice. So really, when you note thought, thought arises, as you're meditating and a thought arises, it's best to just say thinking in your mind. But you could go, remembering, and if it's the future, imagining. Yeah, that wouldn't hurt. And that's the kind of level at which we're operating in the noting practices. And the best thing that I've learned, which I learned from a great meditation teacher called Mingyur Rinpoche, who learned it through his Buddhist tradition and it goes way back, is noting the movement of the belly. Just noticing the tiny little movement as the belly rises and falls. And that's where we're going to start today. So I have a new bell. Well, not a new bell. It's a different bell. And I'm thinking that possibly the quality of this sound might be better, because what happens is the other bells tends to break up. So if you just want to get yourselves comfortable, if you've never meditated, just sit comfortably, feet flat on the floor, elbows by your side. Look for a comfortable place to relax your head. Eyes closed or looking down past the tip of your nose, just so you don't get distracted by anything that's going on around you. And place your tongue up against the back of the top teeth, and ideally your fingers and thumbs in contact, very, very gently. And then what we'll do is just sound the bell and notice the movement of the sound of the bell through time. And move your attention to the sensation of the movement of the belly, just at the point where the belly meets the chest. And what you're doing there is just focusing on the movement. And it's actually encouraged, it's suggested to either touch the belly or the chest. And notice that movement. So you're aware of it through the fingers then. For many meditators who begin breath-based meditation, which is largely what I teach, it's difficult. Because the mind gets all hung up on the breath. Am I breathing too deeply, too shallowly? What's going on? And the thing to do then, and it's a worthwhile exercise for everybody if you haven't done it, is to focus on the movement of the fingers as the belly rises and falls. Just notice the fingers and the belly rising, and the fingers of the belly falling. Rising, falling. And noting this, we note it or label it by saying the word as the belly rises, rising, and as the belly falls, falling, rising, falling. And it's also useful to extend the sound of the inner dialogue to take up the entire duration of the breath. So, for example, if my breathing's reasonably lengthy, I say rising, falling, rising, falling. And you can find out what works best for you here for breathing meditation this way. It's almost as if we're measuring the distance from the breath that we're comfortable with. So if you're noticing the movement of the fingers, it isn't actually a part of the breath, you're noticing the movement of the belly, which is a side effect of the breath. And therefore the movement of the fingers is a side effect of the movement of the belly. So we're kind of twice removed from it. So we're just noticing the fingers rising and falling, or the palm of the hand if you prefer. And then you can let go and you can notice the movement. You can ask yourself whether you're comfortable with that. And then you actually focus on the breath in the belly, noticing the breath filling the belly, emptying it, filling it, emptying. And then if you place your tongue up against the back of the top teeth, with the bottom part of the tongue against the sharp part of the bottom teeth, you can notice the breath entering and leaving the nostrils. So here we're more focused on the breath itself and less on any side effects. And noticing the breath in the nostrils, we're able to notice the coolness and warmth, the coolness and sharpness of the in-breath, and the relaxing warmth of the out-breath. And you can move from awareness of one point, the fingers, the movement of the belly, the movement of the fingers, the belly rising and falling on its own, the breath in the belly, the breath in the nostrils, the coolness and sharpness of the breath, And you also get to choose whether you repeat the mantra. But for the purposes of this practice today, it's useful that you do. Repeating, rising, falling, rising, falling. We'll just practice this. This is following the breath from the place where you feel most comfortable doing it, so you can discover that. If your mind wanders, thoughts arise, mind's drawn to the imaginary future or reconstructing the past, just gently return to the breath wherever it's comfortable for you. And notice that this noting practice, by noting the breath, you're witnessing time passing. The same as with the sound of the bell moving through time, noticing the breath. And noticing the movement of the breath moving through time. And now we'll add another element to it, because thoughts will arise at some point in this process. Might be straight away, there might be a continuous train of thought, or thoughts will pop up. So when the thought arises, we're still performing our noting practice for the movement of the breath, the sensation of the breath, wherever it's comfortable for us. And then a thought arises. When a thought arises, we just say in our mind, thinking. And we come back to the breath. So we're not waiting for thought. This isn't labeling the thoughts. It's just noting thought when a thought arises. Still continuing the noting practice for the movement of the belly. Repeating in our mind, rising and falling. And then a thought arises. And we're acknowledging the thought. We're saying in our mind, thinking. And then back to noticing the breath rising and falling. And noting that. Repeating in the mind, rising, falling. Rising, falling. Whenever we're aware of a thought, just say in our mind, thinking, and then back to the breath, rising, falling. And then, of course, there's more than thoughts that arise in our awareness. When the mind is calm, emotions arise as well. So these things need to be acknowledged. They're messages from our subconscious, from the body-mind. Thoughts, emotions. They're for our attention. The subconscious believes we need to be aware of them to make a choice. When there's no choices to make, there are no thoughts and there's no emotion. And so when an emotion arises, we're not doing anything with it, just noticing it. We say in our mind, feeling. And then back to noticing the movement of the breath, rising and falling. Thought arises, say in the mind, thinking. Emotion arises, say in the mind, feeling. Return back to noticing the breath, rising and falling. We'll just practice this for a little while. And similarly, if the mind has wandered, thinking, that's effectively what it's doing. And then back to noticing the breath, rising and falling. And then whenever you're ready, in your very, very own time, gently, patiently, return your attention to your surroundings. Okay, so that's it for today. Hope you found that useful. I think so long as the audio comes out as well as I think it can, I might put that on the podcast So if you've never listened to any of the podcasts, just go to any podcast app and type in 2020 meditation, and I should come up. I've got something like 70 odd now, and this is a big month for 2020 meditation podcasts because we've reached 5,000 listeners a month. And there's it's just growing and growing, sort of growing at about 20 or 30% per month. It's reasonably popular. And then, so the other things to remember, down there is a subscribe button. So accessing these Saturday classes, the best way to do it, I'm pleased that the sound came out well. I thought it would. Yeah, excellent. Because it is closer to the sound of a human voice, I believe, especially, whereas the other one, it breaks up. Anyway, change is as good as a rest. Yeah, so if you subscribe, then all you need to do, rather than have to wait for a link, is go to the channel, the YouTube channel, and there's a playlist there called Free Online Meditation Course. You click on that playlist and you'll find the live class. That also means that there's a one link. So the link that you use today, if you've got an email or through social media, you click on that link, and that link will take you to the playlist. And in there, you'll see the videos in the playlist, and it'll add up every week. And one of them will say live. You click on that one, and there you are. Brilliant. So I'm glad you enjoyed it, and don't forget to subscribe, and also remember that you can just come to the channel and you can visit the playlist, and you can join every Saturday at 11. And if you need to know whether it's happening or not, you can check social media, but just in case it doesn't update or I don't put anything there, you can have a look on the calendar, which is at 2020meditation.com/live streams. And the final thing is I know a lot of you are course members, and I don't want any money out of you guys, but everybody else, if you've enjoyed it and you found it useful and you want me to continue doing this, then can you donate? And what I'll do is I'll just put this up, and you've got a couple of options. So the one that says payments, you can donate anything you want, and the other one that says coffee, there's small amounts that you can donate, and everything's gratefully received. Okay, so that's it for today. For some reason or another, I can't type in the chat box, but bless you all, and if I don't catch up with you before, I'll catch up with you next Saturday at 11. Okay, take care. Oh, and the other thing to do, you can also press the like button. There you go. Right, thanks.